live on YouTube because as of yesterday, when we went live, we kind of forgot to log out of YouTube. I walked by after our live had ended last night here, and I was sitting there. I was like, "Why is my light on in there, and why is it so dim?" And as I got closer, I realized it wasn't my light that was on. I left my laptop on, and I left the live still going on from YouTube. So there was like 2 hours of footage on YouTube that just was not even anybody sitting there. So I had to instantly delete that one. Courtney, thank you for joining us. Timmy, thank you for joining us. Tony, thank you for joining. We're going to continue work on our Hive Tyrant here that we are working on. That guy Mike, thank you for joining us. Yeah, Noodle, it was hilarious because as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh no. I was like, well, that's embarrassing. They're just sitting there watching 2 hours of footage, wondering where I'm at. So now I got to remind myself right before I end the TikTok live to end the YouTube live first. Bill, Allen, thank you for joining us. We are raising money for Fort Safe for Good still, and there's multiple ways you can do that. The first way is the Tiny Diনিes right here. Once we reach that live goal, everything will be donated to Fort Safe for Good. We have already raised over $8. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but when it comes to TikTok donations, that can be quite a lot. Seeing how TikTok automatically pays out at $10. But that will be donated directly to Fort Safe for Good once we reach that goal. Then we also have our Patreon, of course, where 50% of our Patreon monthly subscription, regardless of what tier you pick, will be donated in your name to PanCan. Ghost, Londo, Mary, the first time dad, thank you for joining us. Battle Brush, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the likes, Battle. I appreciate that. This is what we got so far on the wings. So it's very faint because of how we primed, but you can still see that it's green, and that was the effect we were going for. And if I sound funny, I do apologize for that. I actually just had one of my wisdom teeth crack off, as in fully come out of my gum line. So I'm trying to, one, get the numbing that it's pulsating through my mouth to stop, and two, try to get the, because there really isn't any pain, which has me more concerned, but also just to get the habit that I'm not utilizing all of my teeth that I had before, like in yesterday's live. Robin, Ray, Dark, thank you for joining us. Noodle, thank you for joining again. Matthew, thank you for all the likes. I appreciate it. Yes, if anybody wants to help donate, RedFX, thank you for joining us. Burnsy, thank you for joining us. If anybody is wanting to donate to the live, easiest way is to donate right here. For every tiny dino we get, once we complete that goal, that will be donated directly to Fort Safe for Good for PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Association of North America. They handle research and development of cures for pancreatic cancer. And then we also have our Patreon, which is linked into our bio. Regardless of what tier you choose, that will be donated directly to Fort Safe for Good at 50%. So if you get the $30 tier, $15 is donated in your name. If you choose the $5 tier, $2, we did discount our tiers as well. So that's always an option. Maya, thank you for joining us. Melissa, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you joining, Maya, and hello. Thank you for joining our community. We're just a small miniature painter that's trying to help the world up. So this is what we're working on right now. As you can see, there is still, like for instance, these two we gotta go back over still. But we are working on our Hive Tyrant. So this is our custom fleet for Warhammer. So with Warhammer, the Tyranids have what are called fleets. It's what differentiates their color designs. So this is our custom one called Hive Fleet Hephaestus. And this is the Hive Tyrant. So what we're doing is we're just painting these inside the wings green, and you'll see it better on the back of the wings. Which I'm going to start on this one right here. Like so. Sentry. Robin, that's a great question. I use primarily Army Painter, the original Army Painter. I really want to use their Fanatic lines. I've used them a little bit from a friend who let me test some out, see if I'd like them, because he knew I like the original line. And I really like how they work. I love the triad system that they have. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that everything is even. So we're still just using the original Army Painter line. In fact, I gotta add some more of this green to this white palette and a little bit more water too, it looks like. There we go. That's what I needed. Yep, just Army Painter, original line is what we use here. Occasionally we'll use Vallejo, but we typically only have since we only have one set of it. It is the wooden grain set. So when we use more, or when we paint more along the lines of like leather. So I got a perfect example right here. It's like this color right here, that gray or that orange, I should say. That's Vallejo. But everything else on here was Army Painter. Dean Work Grind, One Lemon. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Good thing I caught that. Lynn, Dean, thank you for joining us. That's what we're working on, though. We're just getting that nice color. I don't know what happened up with that one portion of the green, why it's not blending in well. But we'll see what happens with the rest of it. Ben, thank you for joining. Andrew, thank you for joining us. We are still raising money for Fort Safe for Good. And we're going to try keeping this live going as long as we can for today. We're going to try to knock out the rest of this figure because, like, when you're looking at it here, it doesn't look like much was done, but whenever you're in person, you can see that green. Drew, DGGB, thank you for joining us. Robert, thank you for joining. Triple D, thank you for joining us. Now, one thing that would have made this easier for me, MSG, thank you for joining us, would have been if I used a dry brush for these wings. But I forewent that and decided just to paint it with a natural brush so that we can try to keep everything even. Samal, thanks for joining us. Trying to get the light. There we go. See, you can see the green on there. That's what we're going for. Samal, thank you for the likes. I appreciate it. Is that good? Wow, Samal. Speed Paint 2.0. That is a great option. When you're doing the Speed Paint 2.0, Robin, what I would recommend is making sure that when you prime it, you are priming it in a dark color first, and then doing a dry brush of gray across the model. I believe I might have some videos floating about showing how I do it. And then do a white prime from the top. What that will do is it will give the definition that your speed paint needs to get into those recesses. Because what speed paint does is, and I'll use the rib cage here as an example. Or actually the back would be easier. So it would get into those recesses and darken those recesses to more of a wash of that color, but it would still paint over all of these. So similar to how you can still see some of the gray on here, all of that gray that you see would be a little bit darker than what is on the figure. Do I have a Zenithal primed model? I do, actually. So here's a perfect example. So how it's dark down here on this blade and then on the back, that would be a darker shade than up on this very tip here of the metal color that you choose. So I always Zenithal prime my models. That's just a thing I do. It's more of a preference. A lot of people will say that Zenithal priming is no longer needed. But the reason people are saying that is solely, bear with me, solely because of the fact, bear with me for 1 second, everyone. What's up, buddy? Where's mommy? Come on. Downstairs? Okay. Well, go sit down, okay? I don't know what mommy's phone is. Bear with me for 1 second, everybody. My son needs me real quick. What, bud? You can't find it? Where'd you put it? Let me see it. I apologize for that, everybody. My son needed me real quick. As I was saying, a lot of people are getting more and more adamant about keeping speed painters out of the hobby. How I see it is if it gets them into the hobby and it helps them learn, that is the goal. Like you said, Robin, you and your son are new to the hobby, and we welcome you to the hobby. You can definitely do a lot with cheap acrylics. You just need to know how to thin them down properly. If you go on to my followers list, my buddy Blusif, Blusif, works primarily with acrylics. So he'd be a perfect person to reach out to and help with how to thin them down. Because what ends up happening is, unlike regular acrylics, miniature painting acrylics are pre-thinned down for their composition. So they come with medium inside them that helps make sure that everything is thinned down properly and that what you are trying to accomplish can be accomplished without the need of extra thinning. So when I say extra thinning, I mean more along the lines of utilizing like a thinning agent. Now you can use a thinning agent, but typically all you need is water. Alea, Grenwise, Misa, Frank, Cirilio, thank you for joining us. We are painting our Hive Timer. We are also raising money for charity. For every tiny donny that we get right here, that gets donated directly to Fort Safe for Good. That is ran by Lord of the Unfinished Projects. My apologies. And what he's doing is he is raising money for pancreatic cancer awareness. So if you want to donate, you can right there. Once we reach that goal, I will donate it directly through his link that he has for Fort Safe for Good in the name of the Scarecrow community. And then we also have the it's on the tip of my tongue. So we have that. We have the Patreon. Our Patreon. 50% of our Patreon is being donated. So if you say you sign up today and you want to donate, you want the $30 tier, 15% of your membership is donated direct, or $15, getting tongue tied there, is donated directly to Fort Safe for Good in your name. So whatever name you have on Patreon, that's what it would be donated to. Dr. Van Kuren, thank you for joining us. Carmen, thank you for joining us. Don T. Kerr, thank you for joining us. Philip, thank you for joining. Yeah, Robin, if you are still here, like I said, reach out to Blusif, check out his videos. He may have some sort of tutorial on how to thin the cheaper acrylic or the acrylics to where they would work without being too thick. Cam Lost, who is also in my followers page as well, I do know worked with acrylics in the past. Really, you can use anything with miniature painting. it is all a preference after all. And that's why I'm saying, like, don't be discouraged. If you want to do a Zenithal highlight, even though a lot of the community is more leaning towards not being welcoming to that sort of priming, go for it. I mean, I do all of my models in a Zenithal prime, and then I do a wash over them, and then I paint them, and that's how I get the details that I get. A lot of my miniatures are one coat and go. Malachi, Sarah, thanks for joining us. We are raising money for pancreatic cancer awareness. You can donate right there to the Tiny Dinies. When you donate to the Tiny Dinies, once we reach that live goal, that entire amount gets donated directly to Fort Safe for Good. Fort Safe for Good is a charity event ran by Lord of the Unfinished Projects, who is doing a miniature painting competition. And this is our second piece that we are entering into his competition. The first one is right here. The theme of the competition is spooky. It's $10 per miniature to enter. When it says $10 per miniature or diorama, which is being classified as 3 or more figures to enter. And then it is also, he's also just accepting donations as well through his Linktree. So you can donate through his Linktree. You can donate as part of the community through the gift goal up top. Or you can donate as through joining our Patreon. And if you join our Patreon, 15% or 50% of your monthly subscription is donated. So if you decide to get the $30 subscription, that is $15 getting donated in your name. Or if you just want to donate directly to the American Cancer Society, we do have that up there as well. Penguish, Brendan, Roland Poland, Thomas, thank you for joining us. This is what we've gotten so far. We just got this one wing flap on the front. We got these ones to do on the bottom of the wing. And then we're going to double check, see if there's anything else that needs green on it before we continue with the green. So after the green, we move into the black. The black's the fun part. Now, with big figures like this, I always recommend painting them before you build, or at least do them in segments, um, because it does get difficult with some angles to get everything that you want. However, I got this sold to me as a belt piece, so really can't complain. Okay, so I am going to remind everybody to keep it PG-13 and to be respectful. We are getting live comments flagged. I'm not even able to see whose comment was flagged. But keep it respectful. That's all I ask. Dream, welcome. Ah, yeah, that'll do it. That'll get it flagged right away. It can be. Diva, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the live stream. I appreciate it. So what I'm doing real quick before I move on that inner wing is I'm painting these little legs on these brain particles. Oh, no problem. That's my job with this. I mean, we have to educate people. We have to teach people what we can do. I mean, me personally, like I said, I am a fan of speed paints. I see the reasoning for them. Like if you're doing a large scale army, you don't got a lot of time, definitely pull out the speed paints and go to town. I do feel that they can be used as a crutch a lot of the time too, however. So what do I mean by a crutch? You'll see a lot of new painters get too familiarized with the speed paints and just leave it at that. What I recommend doing is using speed paints for a few months or until you can get another set of paints. My recommendation is the Army Painter Fanatics line. It is expensive. I will preface that. But it is a very good line, and I can't recommend it enough. And then watch tutorial videos on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you watch your videos primarily, as well. Because what ends up happening with a lot of miniature painters is we get in the habit of doing one thing and one thing only. And then we lose focus on how we want to do some things. For instance, I have all this green that I need to do up here. And it's going to look messy at first, but I'm also covering it up this part in black, so as long as it gets into those recesses, that's all that matters. So But yeah, definitely try out the Fanatics line. Try out Vallejo. Um, try all the paints you can try out um, to see what works for you. Everybody's going to have a different preference. I know buddies that will swear by Citadel. They will only use Citadel, nothing else. I have other buddies that will not touch a single brand um, to that is labeled as a miniature painting uh, brand. I have other buddies that, for instance, me, when I do my varnishes, I use Mod Podge and water. Uh, I have buddies that will sit there and swear that's the wrong way to go. I have other buddies that swear that it's the right way to go. It's really up to you on preference. So definitely try out everything you can. Yeah, I do seem to got a bug problem. I mean, it's better than having a parasite problem like the Nurgles, but I mean, maybe we'll have to see. How you doing, Cenobite? I appreciate the likes. Bear with me for 1 second. I'm using that Circle water bottle. For those that don't know, and this is not a paid sponsorship. It's a good product if it works. I am currently working on the Hive Tyrant. That dude, thank you for joining us. So this is our custom Hive fleet. That does happen a lot of the times, Dream. But at the same time, I will say that is good advice. But you also have to factor in that sometimes that's just not an option. Take the Fanatics line. When Army Painter announced the Fanatics line, uh, they started to slowly remove all of their original line. So, for instance, everything I have right now to paint, if I needed to get more of one specific color, like my Vampire Red, which is used on my entire army, this one was fully decommissioned. I have to figure out what color is closest to Vampire Red with the Fanatics line. But yeah, I mean, that does happen. That's why I'm saying test out everything you can. See, that's what I use too, Cenobite. You want to talk about D&D figures? I mean, this is our diorama entry for Fort Safe for Good. Funny story about this piece. This dragon right here, I actually stripped down and repainted. The colors are pretty much the same. The only difference is like the claws on the wings. Those were actually a different color originally. And then like on the beard itself down here, those were a different color originally. The fire was more matte. It wasn't translucent like it was. Brenda, thank you for joining. We didn't have the lava pool. We didn't have the detail on the actual base itself because we didn't have any of our UV resin. We didn't have our basing paste or anything like that when we first did this. 6 years ago. So we stripped it, we redid it, and we went back to work on it. And I was like, you know what? We're putting this in the competition. Plastic Crack, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the follow, Cenobite. And my skill, I mean, I appreciate that. It's just years of experience. I've been doing this for 6 years on and off. I started in 2018, 2017, maybe 2019. And what ended up happening was I painted consistently, was getting where I was like, okay, I'm doing pretty good. And what ended up happening was my wife had my son, and where we lived, we really did not have enough space. So I stopped painting for over 3 years. And then we moved. We finally got enough space. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start painting again. And since then, it's been nonstop. I think we go live. We try to go live at least once a week, if not once a day. So we definitely try to make sure that our followers know we are keeping up as much as we can. This is going to move it a lot faster. I just increased my brush size so that we can start getting these wings done a little bit faster. This piece right here that we're working on now, this is also going into that Fort Safe for Good miniature painting competition that I mentioned before. And this is going into the singles category. So the one I showed before is a diorama piece. I took 3 different figures. The plague, or the plagued elf from the Green Dragon Wormling of Noslers, the young adult dragon. Dream big. Thank you for the tiny dinies. The young adult dragon from Noslers, and we took the Frameworks elf ranger, and we painted him to look like Dritz Doradin. And then we have this figure, which is going into the singles competition once we get the money to donate directly to it. Scott, thank you for joining us. Tomorrow, if we do go live, it's going to be a really late live. We have my stepmother's birthday celebration we are going to right after I get off my 9 to 5. And then Tuesday, it really just depends on when I get dinner done on if we will go live as well. Make me some pork steaks on Tuesday. And then Wednesday for sure, we should be able to go live. Even if it's just for a little bit. So if you do not see me until Wednesday, that is why. Selma, thanks for joining us. But if you want to donate to Fort Safe for Good, there's multiple ways you can do it. If you want to become or join the miniature painting competition, you can go through my reposted videos and look for the ones from Lord of the Unfinished Projects. I have posted how to donate through his link tree. So there's one option there. And then the other option is to utilize our donations that we have up there. All of that gets donated directly to Fort Safe for Good. We also have our Patreon, which we are discounting, or we have discounted as well, to try and help raise money as well. And what ends up happening is for every membership, for every membership that is donated through our Patreon, 50% is donated to Fort Safe for Good. So that's a very great question, Sino. So, as I was explaining to Robin, I have no problem with speed paints. My biggest gripe with speed paints is you see more newcomers using them and sticking with them to where it's not building their skill. I feel that everybody needs to push themselves to grow as a miniature painter. Otherwise, you're just stuck in the same level. It goes back to what I was saying about zenithal highlighting and zenithal priming. Everything that I do, I'm going to back out so you can see it better. Everything I do is zenithal primed. You can really tell it on the back here. So everything that I've primed on video or primed here, even my Tyranids that I'm currently working on, it's primed. That comes down to how you're thinning it. Speed paints, everyone thinks that it's just like contrast paint from Citadel, where all you gotta do is get it out of the pot and go to town. Not the case. That also leads down to how you primed. So if you're using a matte primer, like I'll show an example here. So this one was zenithal primed, but it was primed in matte. All this solid surface, that's going to look chalky because there's no recesses really within that. Whereas the back, with all those recesses, that's not going to look chalky, because the point of speed paints is honestly just to make sure that you can get it over the figure and get it in those recesses. It's more of like a wash, more of a colored wash than an actual paint, in my opinion. This is what we got. Going on. We're going to move on to black now. I'm going to double check some areas for green and red. Make sure that we hit all of them. Gotta clean this brush. Yeah, speed paints can definitely be used, and I think that personally they should be used, but make sure that you are also advancing your technique. For example, that's what I was mentioning before with the zenithal priming. A lot of older painters, when you're looking through like Facebook or Reddit, they will hound, and I mean like Witch Hunt Hound. New painters, because they're seeing all these older videos from well up and coming miniature painters that continuously said, hey, just use a Zenithal highlight back 3-4 years ago. And now we have these older painters who are sitting there saying, no, don't do Zenithal highlighting because it's just going to make you look lazy. Because the first thing everyone thinks with Zenithal highlighting is that you are priming it that way solely because you're using speed paints. Once again, if you're using speed paints, if you're using regular paints, if you're using oils, if you're using cheap Walmart brand acrylics, whatever you're using it because you like it. As long as it's looking good for you, that's all that matters. For instance, this. I'll use my own artwork for it. A lot of people will sit there and say that this is not the best paint job, and I'll admit, I mean, even where's it? Right there. It doesn't look the best, but it's my paint job. And what everyone forgets is unless you're entering it into a competition, it's really no one's business but the artists. Where is my black? Exactly. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely use the cheap acrylics from Walmart. You can use name brand. As long as you are happy with the product, that is all that matters. Okay, so let's move on to the next figure we got here. Well, not figure, but color. And actually, before we move on to that, I am going to do what I said I was going to do before with the orange. Where's that one? Okay. So nope. Now, the big issue I have with a lot of miniature painters as a whole. Now, this isn't like me coming at anybody specifically. It's more so me educating or attempting to educate everybody. You have people that will outright defend these older miniature painters as if their life depended on it. And some of them, like Vance, definitely deserves the credit. There are still a lot that I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, you're sitting here telling these people not to use a specific product because you don't fancy it, but how do you know that they won't? And what we did, oh my God, we can see it, is we took some orange, and it's very subtle, but on that vein, we put some orange. We're going to brighten that up a little bit more. Kaylin, thank you for joining us. The big thing when it comes to miniature painting is keep your brushes clean. Enjoy the paints you're using. And make sure that you are doing the best you can. Because if you're not doing the best you can, then you need to work on it until you can do the best that you can. No, we represent the Hive Queen here, Kaylin. No Nurgle affiliation here, just the Hive Queen. Hey, I liked the suggestion. I laughed at that. That was a good one. No, I'm a Tyranid through and through. I haven't played a game yet, but I have watched enough content to know what I am truly feeling for an army, and that's why I went with the Tyranids. But that's what we did right there. So you can see that we highlighted it and made it stronger, and it matches up here on the brain. Tyrant Guard is a nice one. Ricardo, thank you for joining us. Caitlin, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the likes and the follows. I appreciate it. Yes, it is. This is my custom Hive Fleet. This is Hive Fleet Hephaestus. Here are the Barmagons. Let me get out of the way so it focuses. And then we have the Termagants right here. And then we have one of the Neurogons. The theme that they are based around is, first off, their name comes from Hephaestus, the Greek god. And it's fitting because these are Tyranids that are solely from Death Worlds. I appreciate that. But yeah, they are solely from Death Worlds. Specifically Death Worlds that are volcanic. Hence why all their bases have a volcanic looking texture. So I was debating that, honestly. However, that role belongs to a buddy of mine named Minigeddon. He beat me to it. So I Nurgle Nids are officially off the table because of Geddon. And he is in my followers as well as my following. So if you want to give him a shout out and check him out, definitely do that. He's another amazing artist. So what's going to happen here, and this is why I'm really excited for this, is I'm going to show off what we're going to do with this one first. Once we get this one painted, I'm going to show off what we're going to do. So the whole thing revolving around Hive Fleet Hephaestus is its unique patterning. That's how you can tell that it is a Hive Fleet Hephaestus. The black carapace, the red top, the green underbelly, and the fact that if you are on a death world that is volcanic, you know that you have a high chance of running into it. Very nice. So let me get my red out that we need. Where's my pure red? Pure red is right in front of me. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this. So let's get a couple of drops on the palette. Let's get our brush. So first and foremost, we have to do our signature carapace stripe. So on all Hive Fleet Hephaestus, they get this signature stripe. Across their entire carapace. That sounds like fun. There's some areas on here I gotta go back over. It's flooding it a little bit. And it's fine that it's flooding a little bit because we're gonna do some things with it that normally I wouldn't do. But now, the other thing with Hive Fleet Hephaestus, let me check. So if it's this side, it goes up. Okay. Is their claw. They have a signature red stripe on every claw. So that's one way you can tell it's a Hive Fleet Hephaestus. So I'm going to let that dry because we are going to go over that with some UV resin. I need to get a specific effect paint out. I believe it's right here. Yep. Okay. Hayden Watska, thanks for joining us. So while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to go on this back and touch up some areas that I think should have been painted that for some reason were not. and just look it over. Modern Viking, thank you for joining us. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. Try to get this one fully covered how I want it. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's fully fully covered because it's going to get covered up with UV resin anyway. Once that's dry, we're going to go ahead and start working on that. Just to show you what we're going to do. With this. Black Arrow, thanks for joining us. Yeah, that looks great. You might hear my little one in the background playing. He has been fascinated with superheroes for the past few months. So he has these little figures he plays with. They're like Hulk and Captain America and all that we got him, and he is nonstop played with them. That's what we got so far. This is almost dry enough to do what we need. So let's try and let's go over what we're doing here today. First and foremost, Tiny Dinies. Once we reach that live goal, that amount is being donated to Fort Safe for Good. Fort Safe for Good is running a miniature painting competition dedicated directly towards raising money for PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Association of North America. With them raising money for that, we have entered one of our pieces already, and that is our dragon diorama. We then also have this Hive Tyrant that we're working on that is going to be donated as well. For every $10 that you donate, you can enter one miniature. We are donating the amount up there in Tiny Dinies, which, if we did the math correctly, should equate to $100 directly to Fort Safe for Good for pancreatic cancer awareness. In total, it'll be 2,000 Tiny Dinies, and that's going directly to them in our name. So it's going to be the whole organization's name, Scarecrow Community. But let's get to what I was going to explain with that UV resin. Where is it? Where did my cup go for my UV resin? Oh, it's right in front of me. Upside down, of course. So I haven't played yet, but from watching Tyranids are definitely my favorite army by far. I don't know what it is about them. It's just, I think it's because I like the idea of a hive mind, and then I really like the idea of the hive mind also being a swarm-based entity. And I really enjoy those kinds of creatures and villains, and when I'm playing like a video game. But we are going to start with this UV resin real quick. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to get a little drop. Okay, and then we're just going to take it across here. We're not going to be even about it either. So all we're doing, don't want to put that in my mouth and get demonetized or hit with a ban or anything like that. Oh, you were meaning like Space Marines and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, my favorite one would have to be the what is it? It's the Space Wolves by far. And that's because wolves are my favorite creature. So it fits. What I'm doing here is I'm going to pull this off. We're going to have some blood effect going on. See, I haven't seen much of Votan around here, so I wouldn't really know much about them. From what I've seen from the lore and watching people play them, they look fun. But even when I'm playing D&D, I'm not much of a dwarf player. High Off Products, thank you for the likes, thank you for joining, and thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So this is what we're working on right now. For some reason, it's not wanting to cooperate precisely with how I want to do it. So we gotta be very careful with how I do it. That's looking more like it. Okay, let's get this piece finished. Now, the best way to do a blood effect when using UV resin is using what's what I'm looking for? It's a fishing line. I, however, do not have fishing line, so I can't utilize that trick. So we're just doing it the old-fashioned way and using regular old UV resin. on and just pulling it down. Katie, thank you for the likes. Caitlin, my apologies. Afternoon, Turn to Dust. Thank you for joining us. So that's what we're gonna do now. So we have our blood effect pin right here. Before I do that, let me make sure that it's fully dry. Doug Cole, thanks for joining us. Thank you, Turn to Dust. I appreciate that. AK, thank you for joining. I did not see you come in. I apologize. But that's what we're working on there. Thank you for the gifts. I appreciate it. And the good thing about this is if you look at the front, you can see where the actual like marking ends and the blood begins. Now this way I can, oh, of course I knocked him over. So what I'm doing real quick is I'm just cleaning up my little UV resin pod real quick. I usually clean that out after every time I finish one portion of it. This piece will have both arms with that design. Have I ever mixed paint in with the resin? That is a great question. So they have inks you can buy for UV resin. And yes, I have mixed paints in with the resin. It was not the best outcome. That was with mixing the paints in with the resin. And then, as you can see, the effect of painting over the resin. It looks better. That looks more like lava to me than this ever will. Yep, we got a little bit of a blood effect going on there. And I really like how that does look, especially on that back. You can see where it's like pooled and where it's actually like, you can tell that that's coming from something just dripping off. And I just love how that looks. Okay. So with that, we're going to take a quick little break. I need to go and hit my vape real quick. And we'll be right back. Because I do want to get that other effect going on. Yeah, little man is definitely having fun back there. Little Scarecrow's having a blast, like usual. This next blood effect, when we do it here, the thing we're going to have to worry about is we're going to have to make it go directly down as to not get on there. Or I can have it kind of swooshing around. Ooh, yeah. I'll have it swooshing around that back leg as if it's flying. And there's more coming off of it. But we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue working on this. I think he's actually watching us on live now because I heard him say Daddy's busy. If you are watching, Bubba, have fun. I'll see you in a few minutes. And yeah, this is what we are working on. What we're going to work on next, like I said, is definitely going to be this other claw. We're going to finish the carapace and all the black markings. Hopefully we can get this done besides the base today, because what the base we're going to do is directly under here is going to be another lava pool. So let me like mark out real quick what I'm talking about. So from like here to there is going to be a lava bowl. Same way we did before. The only thing, we might pull it back a little bit, is because we're going to have to make it rigid enough to where it's not touching this, but also make it to where it holds the lava in and we can get a good object source sliding like we did on the dragon. But with that being said and done, we are going to take a break. I want to thank everybody who has joined us. If you are interested in supporting Fort Safe for Good, check out my follow or my reposted videos, and we're going to be right back. Have a great night, and I'll see you in about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a little bit later than that, but we will be right back. Bye-bye.